Hey everybody! The recently released previews of Dragon Age Veilguard have once again sparked a bit of controversy, with a lot of back and forth going on social media in regards to the character creator, including the gender of non-binary, with they-them pronouns, double mastectomy scars, otherwise known as top surgery scars, and a few other things like, for example, vitiligo and cellulite. I want to talk a bit about this topic and present the reason why I believe it is actually so much more important than what loads of people are trying to pass on as something that doesn't really matter. Because the number one argument that I can find online in regards to this is usually something along the lines of, why does it matter to you? Just ignore it. It's just an option, no one is forcing you to use it. Why do you care that much? It's not about you. And other similar comments that at a surface level kind of do not sound wrong, but are missing the entire fucking point. So I'd like to line up a few things that I'll be trying to tackle here. Number one, why it actually does matter, far beyond the simple concept of optional top surgery scars. Number two, why the inclusion of it matters to the people who support it and exactly why they support it. Number three, the reason why these ideologies screw up game development. Number four, the reason why this is actually, indeed, ideological and not really genuinely about any inclusion or anything of the sort. So yeah, let's get cooking. So, the reason why it matters is because it goes far beyond the simple addition of a scar or a they-them pronoun to a video game character creator. At a surface level, these are just options that anyone can turn off. But something you definitely cannot turn off is the actual ideology behind it, and it is an ideology. Notice, for example, that these scars aren't even put into the scar section of the character creator, next to the other scars, but are actually in a separate section under the specific name of top surgery scars. More on this later. Matters like non-binary genders are a very hotly contested topic in Western politics, and transsexuality is even more so, specifically the transition of children. More on this on topic number 4. Basically, on that surface level, it's very easy to say that it doesn't matter and justify its inclusion as just a nice thing for those who do care and who want to feel seen and represented, that it doesn't bother or harm anyone else nor impact anything else. But I argue that this is wrong and is actually the same kind of nice, tolerant, easygoing mentality that got us exactly where we are now, culminating in the apex of shit content that are games like Dustborn and Concord, stories and writing present in Soy Squad, missed opportunities for a character created in Star Wars Outlaws that could have still easily been included alongside with Humberly Gonzalez as the default character for those who wanted to play as a set character, like for example in Mass Effect. And of course, let's not forget like fucking half, if not more, of the entire Disney Plus catalog, especially trash like the MCU Phase 4 and Disney Star Wars. This latest one, The Acolyte, was so terrible that it had the Season 2 cancelled in less than 2 months. And this is because this kind of mentality is a slippery slope that eventually leads into replacing actually passionate creatives who just want to make good media with obsessed activists who just want to cram their messages into entertainment with a wide reach. The Acolyte, for example, at its surface was just a show, but it actually was so much more than that. It was an extremely important symbol for far-left ideologues in the creative space and their modern audience, otherwise known as woked-out people. Oh, and also let's not forget how important it was for entertainment media / access media journalists that are just as bad, if not worse, than gaming journalists. Which is why when the show's viewership was dwindling and it was getting roasted online, these showrunners, actors, journalists and fans ran to the defense of the show, telling the fandom how sexist, racist and whatever phobic they were for not liking it, and that they don't matter anymore and shouldn't even be watching the show to begin with. And when it ultimately got its Season 2 cancelled, there was a massive outcry against both the critics of the shows as well as even Disney itself. Ah man, it was beautiful. So many unhinged soy people tweeting in all caps telling Disney to go fuck themselves. Finally, for once, the Star Wars fandom was unified in at least one thing, even if not for the same reasons. And of course, we must not forget the success of this show was indeed so ideologically important that a smear and cancellation campaign was launched against several big content creators who criticized the show, an actually coordinated attack with the goal of getting YouTube to remove or at least demonetize these people, calling their criticism of the show as hatred and vitriol. So if this is just a nice little inclusive thing that doesn't really matter and impact anything else, and it's just a nice little addition for people misrepresented in the media, then what the hell was all this about? So supporting this, or just kind of letting it happen under the guise of innocent inclusivity, is a proven slippery slope that results in radical ideologues abusing people's good nature to start slowly overtaking more and more of media production, injecting more and more radical ideologies into media and using quote-unquote marginalized minorities as both a shield and a sword, and also wielding their own version of a nuclear deterrent, which was the ever-powerful cancel culture. Cancel culture has been dwindling over the last couple of years, which has been a delight to see. It's proof that our society is starting to heal, but not that long ago, it was so powerful that finding one single tweet of yours from 12 fucking years ago that could be considered insensitive in current day was enough to get you to lose your job. They even liked using hashtags like cancel party after the name of the person or thing that the mobs were canceling. Another avid user of the cancel culture mobs of social media is Kim Belair, CEO of Sweet Baby Inc., who has openly admitted and suggested using intimidation on studios and publishers to get her shitty fucking company hired as DEI consultants. They despise gamers, they hate the gaming space, and they've made it clear that their goal is not diversity and inclusion, but an actual eventual takeover and replacement of the kind of content that gets made, which will never really happen because even if she did manage to expand that much, all these games would be flopping and they would be out of money. You see, it's very easy to talk the talk when it's not your own money that is up on the table when it comes to a game's success. Sweet Baby Inc. comes in, charges millions for their consulting services, fucks up stories, characters, world building, etc., or a combination of all these things, and then they fuck off and don't care if the game flops or not. Their mission of fucking up a game with ideology is already completed. They don't have to be successful to get hired, all they have to do is say this.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups, and if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
And the reason why they hold so much power, the reason why they have so much access that they manage to work on huge projects like Spider-Man, God of War, Alan Wake, and Soy Squad, as well as the reason why they are so protected that they can be this divisive, incompetent, useless, and inflammatory towards the gaming space without a single inkling of consequence, is because they've managed to latch themselves onto this industry and feed off of it like a parasite, under the guise of progressivism and diversity and inclusion. Again, the replacement of passionate creatives who want to make good games with unhinged, out-of-touch activists who want to force their ideologies on everyone and everything around them and not take no for an answer. They're also working on other stuff too, by the way. It's not just the games that I mentioned. They work for various huge publishers and studios, and despite the backlash all year long, they are still working on unannounced Square Enix, Insomniac, and Ubisoft titles. It's just that they've taken to hiding their work from their website. And let's not forget the shady shit that they just got caught doing for Ubisoft and the New York Times, literally fabricating lies to be presented as news to defend Ubisoft in regards to AC Shadow's drama regarding Yasuke. Another way that this slippery slope works is the reason why games like Black Myth Wukong, Space Marines 2, and Stellar Blade are targets for the game's media because of not adhering to obvious political agendas. That's sadly the key point here. It's that we've gone so far into lunacy that a simple game like Black Myth Wukong, a pure action-focused game set in Chinese mythology with no gender, sex, or racial-focused themes in its fantasy setting and story, can get attacked relentlessly for denying Sweet Baby Inc. and not including diversity and inclusion, aka DEI policies, in the game. So in other words, you have no creative freedom to simply make a game that does not want to meddle in real-life politics. Or rather, you do have the freedom to do that, but you run the risk of getting the side-eye from the media or potentially even getting attacked with a fabricated smear campaign that interprets your neutrality and loyalty to the art as an alt-right decision. Similarly, every game from now on that features a character creator will be scrutinized and called transphobic or deliberately exclusive to marginalized communities and misrepresented groups if they don't include non-binary genders, they-them pronouns, and double mastectomy scars in their character creators. The games industry will now look to Veilguard as a precedent for something that should be present in all games, and they will use the precise argument that they use for Wukong and that people use in comment sections defending Veilguard, that it's just diversity and inclusion, and not doing it, even in settings where it clearly doesn't make any sense, is appealing to problematic, toxic right-wing fan bases. So, if top surgery scars are only going to be appealing to a minuscule minority of people that can't even fill the entire trans demographic, which is already a minority in and of itself, more on this later, then why do we see so many comments defending this, coming from normal people who have no stake in it? Well, it's because it's the perceivably good thing to do. They see the scars as an inclusive addition for transsexual people, especially trans men who would have to undergo double mastectomies to remove their breasts. At least that's the look of it. To people who are on the outside looking in, who are not up to par with what BlackRock is, to what it is that DEI departments and DEI policies really do, the way that they actually operate, the depths of this regressive ideology that refuses to see people as individuals and judges and discriminates us all based on our innate, unchangeable characteristics such as race, gender, and sexuality, to people who don't actually know what companies like Sweet Baby Inc. actually do, how they operate, how they force themselves into studios and publishers with intimidation, how they hate and discriminate against gamers, how they lie to the public and fabricate shit in news media, like how they were just caught doing right now, like I mentioned, the way that consultant companies and DEI departments like it exist solely for corporations to increase their ESG scores and land better business deals with investors like BlackRock and Vanguard, the fact that none of this is even genuine and real, more on this in a little bit, like to them, unbeknownst of all of this stuff or willingly ignoring it, there are really only two ways to view this situation. The good way, which is to support it because it's being inclusive of people with mastectomy scars and that's good because they're marginalized and underrepresented in media and etc, and the bad way, which is to be against it, which looks like bigoted, discriminatory, anti-trans rhetoric. When you lack deeper context into why this bothers people and is unquestionably ideological, which goes into far deeper and uncomfortable matters, some of which are political, such as the whole child transitioning thing that I'll try to sum up in a bit on topic number 4, and other matters which are not political at all, such as not wanting entertainment media like film, TV shows, games, etc. to be used as a tool for political and ideological propaganda. When you lack all of this information, you just look at everything at a surface level, black versus white, and so those are the only two narratives that they see. That's why speaking against this is always very taboo and can result in negative interactions online, because these matters require actual discussions. It requires maturity, it requires a willingness to let go of our biases, a willingness to be uncomfortable, and most importantly, a willingness to listen to people who we have been taught to hate. I'm gonna try to keep this section short because I already covered this extensively in my DEI video. This topic is meant to be as apolitical as possible. Basically, what I mean when I say injection of ideologies, I am specifically talking about real-life political statements and messages that are forced into lore, world building, story, characters, environments, or game design, or a mix of all of these. They don't have to be literal statements and messages. Sometimes a simple scene with a character asking the other character what their pronouns are in a fucking world in a galaxy far, far away in the future, or in a medieval fantasy world completely devoid of 21st century
fucking current day Californian shit,
is enough to break the fourth wall just to make sure that you're eating your gender studies vegetables today. Nothing that breaks immersion is good, but further than that, with political ideology not only are you breaking that immersion, but you're also dividing your audience. And in fact, further than that, with extreme political ideology, not only are you breaking immersion and dividing your audience, but you are also directly excluding entire chunks of your audience who will be put off from even buying your product. If Veilguard stop surgery scars were simply a tiny little addition to be inclusive of trans people, which again doesn't even really work, we'll get to it in topic 4, just bear with me here, and if it wasn't 2024, the year where so many people have finally hit their limit with this relentless force-feeding of ideological bullshit, then you could actually maybe kind of get away with it. Last year, when I saw pronouns in the character creator of Starfield, I didn't even flinch that much. I noticed it, I rolled my eyes a bit, and then I kept playing hoping that the rest of the game hadn't been too impacted by it. Though we already know what happened there. But sadly, in Veilguard, they are an ideological injection being shoved into a world where it doesn't even make sense for them to be there. A world of magic, ancient ways of life and medieval bullshit, not doctors and surgeons. Sometimes I see the argument that, for example, the reason a game like Concord and Dustborn fails, or the reason why the Acolyte also failed, is because of the content within the product, and not because of politics. While it is true that the content is the most important part, and that bad writing, bad character design, bad acting, and bad stories are straight up solid and palpable reasons as to why these pieces of media failed, doesn't mean that politics didn't actually impact them. Because political nonsense is what often influences these terrible decisions to be made in the first place. When you approach a creative project and you make it your main goal, or one of your main goals, to focus on injecting your personal baggage, preachy messaging and political ideology into several aspects of your product, you are automatically making the decision to not put your focus onto the things that matter the most for the product to succeed in the world of fiction, be it shows or games. If you're going to make a comedy movie, for example, and being funny is not your top priority, then you fucked up. When you put your ego above your responsibility to your consumers, to your fans, you are automatically putting yourself on the path to make bad decisions. Now, understandably, Corinne Bush, the director of Dragon Age Veilguard, probably doesn't even feel much of a responsibility to any fans because she wasn't even a developer in the Dragon Age series. She was a developer on The Sims. The Sims. Now, why the fuck would BioWare or EA put the director of Sims games as the director of an incredibly important make-or-break game for BioWare after the disgraceful failures of Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, and after the studio got basically stripped down to its bones in terms of veteran developers who led all of these series that we loved? Well, I don't know. Higher-ups at gaming companies make some of the most stupefying decisions I've ever seen, but when I look at the developer diary on Corinne, I immediately feel that this game's chances are fucked, because she is putting ideology not only in front of Veilguard, but at the very forefront of her thoughts when it comes to what Dragon Age represents as a whole. Let's read her developer diary on the thing that matters the most for this matter here, which is the game itself. The Dragon Age franchise has a very special place in Corinne's heart. In Dragon Age, you can be who you want to be, explore the possibilities and consequences of your choices, and build relationships that leave lasting impressions. Few games give players that kind of autonomy while also weaving such a rich narrative. As a queer trans woman, I have a perspective on the games that not everyone has. Dragon Age has long been a place where LGBTQIA+ folks can see people like themselves represented respectfully. It's inherently very queer, and it's such a rare thing for marginalized communities to have representation where we feel proud and powerful in how we are depicted. It's so deeply meaningful for so many. I often get emotional when I think about what it would have meant for a younger version of myself to see someone like her, and as a hero no less. I hope we can be a safe place for our queer players to know they are not alone, that they are brilliant and worthy, and that they are not only welcome but celebrated. The tiny top paragraph is the only thing she says about Dragon Age as a game series that can even be remotely related to Dragon Age as a game series. Be who you want to be, sort of. You're a preset person, you can simply customize them and then you can choose whether to be a good version of that or a bad version of that. But the rest is alright though. Possibilities, consequences, relationships, rich narratives. This is still missing a shit ton of stuff, but maybe she goes into it on the last bigger paragraph, I thought. But she doesn't. Instead, she goes into identity politics and other assorted rhetoric that doesn't really actually matter to the game, or even to the vast majority of the players of the game, as she herself admits by saying saying that as a queer trans woman, she has a perspective on the games that not everyone has, and she decided that she would use her personal, inconceivable perspective to the vast majority of the player base in order to visualize what this franchise should be about. When I think of Corinne and other trans people, I genuinely view them as people. I don't view them as trans people. I don't care about the fact that she transitioned. I only care about the content of her character, and this goes for everyone else in the world. Specifically, as a game director, I care about her creative capacity, her competence, and since it's a big project, her resume. And so when I hear nonsense about marginalized communities and being able to see themselves and being celebrated, I roll my eyes pretty violently, because the vast majority of these people are marginalizing themselves. Society as a whole does not see them as different unless they make themselves different. Corinne, in my eyes, passes perfectly, at least insofar as her photo in the diary goes. If I was out buying groceries, for example, and she was standing in line or whatever, I wouldn't notice anything unusual about her. Just another typical woman shopping.
Women be shopping! Damn, you can't stop a woman from shopping, baby!
That's true, women do shop.
So basically, if she didn't make her transness such an important part of her personal identity and lifestyle, like the majority of trans people do not, because they just want to alleviate their dysphoria and blend into society and move on with their lives, then we wouldn't even really know that she's trans. If BioWare wasn't trying to tell the world that they have a trans director directing the next major installment of their major franchise so that they can score some more ESG points for EA, the world would not know or care about it. She would probably still be judged, of course, because of the perceivably stupid decision of putting the director of Sims games ahead of a massive RPG, but we wouldn't know or care about anything else. And this seems to be a trend with certain people within the TOS LGBTQIA+++ community. So many of these people do not suffer from any dysphoria. They just choose to perceive and present themselves as marginalized. They choose to victimize and oppress themselves by painting and interpreting the world around them and everything in it, such as entertainment, education, government, workplace, etc., as their enemy, simply because the vast majority of the world around them is not conforming to the delusions that some of these people created for themselves, such as the 72 genders within the non-binary umbrella, which has actually evolved far past 72 by now. They kind of end up creating a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy where they marginalize themselves out of choice and stay marginalized by choice. When I say marginalized, I say it in quotations, because basically you aren't marginalized just because you expect ridiculous levels of special treatment from people in reality itself. If I walk into a job interview with a sticker on my chest saying, "Hi, my pronouns are Zimzer," and I start naming dumbass labels like, "I'm a two-spirit bingo bango bongo gender with a history of trauma and PTSD from living in a white supremacist patriarchal society, and then I demand they hire me because if they don't, they're part of the problem," that doesn't actually make me marginalized. It just makes me an idiot, because I'm making my life harder for myself when I could just shut the fuck up, put away my made-up pronouns permanently, tell them my name, answer their questions, hand in my resume, shake their hand, and leave. But in the cases of trans people, real trans people I mean, I do acknowledge that it is way different. Real trans people, so people who actually have dysphoria and transition, do go through actual struggles in their lives. But a lot of those struggles are mostly personal struggles. Gender dysphoria, having to fund their own transitions, having to fund their surgeries, undergoing these surgeries and their risks, getting pain from those surgeries, etc. Which are problems that will not be fixed by pumping media with ideological bullshit. In fact, they make it worse. This ideology thinks that they're helping trans people by meddling with matters like child transitioning, enforcement of language, inclusion in female sports, pandering to non-binary people, and of course shoving ideological messaging into the general population's favorite mediums of entertainment. But they're not. They're just making normal and real trans people look bad and suffer consequences for shit that they don't even support themselves. Corinne made it pretty evident which type of person she is, as well as her misinterpretation of what is important in the franchise, and her intentions and directions for the future of her games, which is to see herself to be a space for queer players, to cater to them, to make them feel brilliant and worthy, and not only include them, but specifically pander to them and celebrate them, whatever the fuck that even means. I mean, I guess we know what it means. It means top surgery scar buttons in the character creator and the fictional world that won't be fictional at all. It'll just be modern day Californian shit mixed with magic, elves and dragons. It honestly doesn't inspire much confidence. It wasn't enough for Starfield, and Starfield wasn't even that charged with this stuff, so I don't know if it'll be enough for Veilguard. As a director, your main focus should be the quality of your game and what you can bring to the table in matters of lore, in the quality of memorable characters, in where you're going to take the story, what type of gameplay direction you're going to go, etc. Not identity politics and the desire to pander to the 1%. So, the entire last section in regards to Corinne's statements on the developer diary are already a major piece of evidence as to why this is actually ideological and not a genuine desire of creating what you want to create. This is what they say when they describe the inclusion of all of these options, that it's all about making a character creator with so many options that you can create whatever you want, however you want, and be inclusive of as many types of people as possible. But it's not true. But before I elaborate on that, let me mention again how in this character creator, the top surgery scars are specifically specified as top surgery scars in their own section. A clean and clear way to demonstrate to your audience that you're not pulling some far left ideological grift with your video game would be to actually put these scars next to all the other scars in the scars section. Try to say that 3 times fast. But they want to make it as clear as possible that these are scars from a character undergoing double mastectomy surgery, which again means the removal of their breasts. As mentioned before on topic number 2, this is a hot topic in politics, and for good reason, because it's a matter that involves not just minors, but straight up children. Child transition is a massive battleground that runs very hot. Now I know most gamers, probably being teenagers and young adults, don't have a personal stake in the matter, and this results in that huge imbalance online where you see someone who cares a lot getting into heated interactions with someone who doesn't even know what the fuck is going on and thinks the inclusion of top surgery scars is just a nice thing for trans people, and anyone against it could only be a transphobe. Meanwhile, under the surface are debates on whether or not doctors should be prescribing dangerous drugs like puberty blockers to start transitioning children, who absolutely cannot consent to any of this, by the way, and also performing double mastectomies on young girls who are also absolutely unable to consent to either. They can't even consent to tattoos. Hell, they aren't even of age to vote for these matters. If you're not old enough to vote on whether or not children should be allowed to transition or get mastectomies, then how can you be old enough to fully comprehend and consent to your own transition or mastectomy? When you add serious real-life political issues into your game, you have to understand that this is going to carry a lot of weight and potential consequences, because you are essentially taking a stance. When it's pertaining to a matter this huge, well, it's normal for people to take issue. Even though the depicted characters are adults, this is still attached to the same ideology that is directly associated to that stance. Anyway, carrying on here, another indicator of ideological bullshit is the fact that you actually can't create whatever type of character you want. Perfectly visible in how the body sliders are drastically limiting hip width, glute size and chest size, otherwise known as curves, asses and boobs. So if you want to create an elf or whatever that looks like Tifa Lockhart, you can't do it. Hell, if you're one of the many female gamers who play Dragon Age games and you want to create a character that makes you feel seen with your own body proportions, you very likely won't be able to do it, because their ideology is one that is very inconsiderate and straight up sexist to actual women. Anything that goes too far beyond a passable androgynous body is a big no-no. This is the same ideology that attacked Stellar Blade for featuring an unapologetically good-looking woman with clear feminine features. The same kind of ideology that gets people brainwashed into thinking that characters like Eve in her many outfits and Tifa in her swimsuit are directly harmful to quote-unquote female identifying persons by perpetuating perpetuating unrealistic body and beauty standards that exist solely to appeal to the male gaze. I'm working on a video on the site specifically talking about this, so I'm going to leave this here, but I'll just add that I think that this is an insane thing that is happening to women, specifically female gamers. They're straight up demonizing women who have more prominent feminine features, telling them that they're wrong for having the bodies that they have and that they exist solely to perpetuate a patriarchal society. Basically, as with the usual rules of this ideological bullshit, they welcome everyone of all shapes, sizes, backgrounds and opinions, so long as those shapes, sizes, backgrounds and opinions are exactly the same as their own. If not, then they are intolerable and must be eliminated from society. Lastly, the actual trans side of the problem. The reason why I say that these scars are only there to appeal to a minuscule minority of a minority is because in reality most LGBT people don't even care about this. This is partly why I find this kind of disingenuous pandering so distasteful. None of it is genuine or even thought out. It's just shoved in there to tick boxes. The LGBT community is already a minority when it comes to numbers, and within this minority there's another divide between them. There's the ones who want to be perceived, treated and given special treatment as marginalized victims in already progressive Western societies, people who make their genders their entire identity and personality, whose hobbies consist of being terminally online on Twitter and TikTok, looking for things to get offended at or opportunities to make things about themselves. And then there's the totally normal gay, lesbian, bisexual and trans people who put on their pants in the morning one leg at a time just like everyone else, who are just living their lives and keeping what they have in their pants or what they do in their bedrooms as their own private business. They don't need your pandering or your voice to validate and speak for them. Gender dysphoria can be an absolutely crippling mental condition. There are no cures or treatments for this kind of disorder, and the only way to alleviate and cope with it is to transition and live life as a person of the other gender. The better you can pass, the less dysphoria you will feel, and of course the better you can blend into society and have the freedom to live a normal life regardless of what type of personality you have. Naturally, a top surgery scar can be a thing that triggers their dysphoria. A lot of trans men even end up covering up their top surgery scars with tattoos once they've healed up. So it's just like, who is this even for? Is it for virtue signalers who, similarly to Ubisoft, were thinking, oh hey, our protagonist in feudal Japan is black, so let's just put hip-hop music in the combat. I mean, that's what black people like, right? They like hip-hop. So Veilguard was thinking about the easiest, laziest and most condescending way to represent trans people by shoving in double mastectomy scars without even thinking about how inappropriate that is to someone who actually had to get the surgery. This, and the fact that body shapes and sizes for female bodies are specifically limited in the exact same way that these ideologies push through DEI consultants and DEI departments across the board, are a clear indication that this is all ideological. It's not inclusion, it's not body diversity, it's not body positivity, it's not tolerance, it's not kindness, and it's not creating safe and fun spaces for everyone. It's about the message. You can see here what I was just talking about, by the way. It's a directive sent by Microsoft to their own game studios back when these parasites were all attacking Stellar Blade for daring to feature women who look like women.
Thank you for...
Gross. Ew.
So yeah, these are the reasons why I believe that this is not just a little additional option that doesn't matter and that doesn't impact anything else. I don't really care if you buy the game or not. I'm not running a boycott here, nor do I even have the power to do so with 380 subscribers. I have no idea how the full game will turn out. Gameplay itself doesn't look terrible, but all of these ideological injections and influences make this look like it will be a shadow of its former self when it comes to what made Dragon Age a great game with interesting characters, in-universe political intrigue, and above all, an integrity to telling a good story free of real-life propaganda. I am simply tired of hearing those comments saying that it's fine and that it doesn't matter and that it's just an option and that I should not care. We've been through this before and it resulted in the agenda that we have now, poisoning our media. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of condoning it, I'm sick of ignoring it, I'm sick of forcing myself to be tolerant of things that are clearly going over the line and becoming discriminative of people, destructive of media, and regressive to society. That's pretty much it from me on this topic though. Thank you very much for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked the video. I'll see you on the next one.